25 members were elected at the first plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee last week. China's Politburo has already pledged to firmly safeguard President Xi's position at the core of the party. How will their decisions influence China and the world at large? And after the weekend's rally of pro-Madrid supporters in Barcelona following the stripping of Catalonia's autonomy, what happens next for this troubled region of Spain? You're watching The Point, live from Beijing. I'm Li Xi. The Communist Party of China's Political Bureau held their first meeting last Friday, 2 days after its 25 members were elected at the first plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee. The Politburo reviewed two documents, one about safeguarding the centralized, unified leadership of the CPC Central Committee, another on fully implementing frugality rules. The newly elected CPC top leadership pledged to firmly safeguard Xi Jinping's position at the core of the CPC Central Committee and the whole party. Why were these items on the agenda of their very first meeting, and how will statements and decisions from the meeting influence China's future policy and the world at large? I'm joined in our Beijing studio by political economist Lawrence Bram, and in London we have Francesco Sisci, senior researcher with the Center for European Studies at Renmin University. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Lawrence, to you first, what usually happens at the first meeting of a newly elected political bureau, and what do you see as the highlight of this one?
Well, normally it's a consolidation of the political theory or thoughts that have been put forward in at the Congress and enshrined in the Constitution. It's an educational process, but this is really about getting down to brass tacks. It's about business. It's really not about ideology. It's about all the steps that need to be taken to implement the blueprint, which is like a vast business plan for the next 5 years and beyond that was rolled out at the 19th Congress this past week. So what really impressed me about the meeting today, what has come out of this thing is it's all business. It's here are the next steps. Let's get on with it. No more talk. It's all action. She's a person who is not going to waste any time.
Francesco, what is your take on this question? Is it common for these members to start reviewing documents on their very first meeting?
Well, I'm not familiar with the process, normal process after every 5 years. What I would say is that it is a historical meeting because for the first time we really see a different trajectory in the political future of China. Since Deng Xiaoping came to power, from the center was devolved to the provinces and to local cadres, and then there was a dissolution of power in a way. Now power is brought back to the center, is concentrated. Bureaucrats, officials have to be frugal. That is, they no longer have to be entrepreneurial like the times of Deng Xiaoping. So it's a different mood, a different direction for China, and therefore we will have to see in the next years how this trajectory will evolve.
Well, indeed, the key words coming out of the meeting, all these statements and the reports, is enhancing centralized, unified leadership. How do you understand that, Francesco? Does it mean a tighter grip on local authorities, more power to the central leadership, or more supervision from the central leadership?
I think it's both, because over the past 40 years we have seen that power from the center was too much spread out to the provinces, to the local official, to anybody who was free or felt free to take any kind of initiative, and he was oblivious of orders and directive from above, but also of a sense of national direction. Now it's just the opposite. In order to save the country, which I think this was the trajectory in which China was set, Xi Jinping has now concentrated the power it will be concentrated even further more power in the next few years, but then he will have to redistribute power maybe in a different way, in a different direction. So it's very, very different because in a way China in the past few years had lost sense of purpose. We know that we were speaking about pitfalls, political pitfalls. There were many arrests, political trappings. Everything has to be brought back to the center, has been brought back to the center, and Xi Jinping will tell us where to go now.
Yeah, Lawrence, you have been nodding. What is your take on what Francesco just said?
I just put in the context, it was like running a company. Imagine you're running a company and you've given too much decentralized power to local managers, and the managers have gone off and run up a lot of debt, and they've overdeveloped, and they've made commitments that can't be followed through, and they've also disregarded environment and many local social issues. And so what would you do if you were the chairman of the board or the CEO of that company? You rein it back in, you'd clean up the debt, you'd reorganize the management, you would be more socially responsible to consumers, or in this case to your local constituencies, and you'd meet United Nations development goals, which are for companies in the form of global compact, but certainly for nations they're in the form of the 2030 agenda. And you bring it back together, you'd re-centralize it, and you would begin again with a very clear blueprint, and you might have to swap some of the management. I think that's what we're looking at here. And I think that's how I put it into an international context. Think of how you'd run a company.
Yeah, well, in some international press, especially in Western media, there's a lot of doubts as to the central concentration of power on President Xi. How do you look at that? I mean, how can this central or re-centralization of power be balanced with enhancing democracy within the party, Lawrence?
Well, I think what you've seen is the process of leadership transition, and the process has been taking place now for months, if not even the past few years. And so what you really now have is, as opposed to a Western democracy where once you elect the new leadership, then everybody fights against them, and you don't have decision making because there's so much infighting. What's happened is the infighting's over with now, and now it's sitting down and it's implementing the policy plan that's been set and the agenda. So it's just, it's really flipping the process. That's what's happening.
Francesco, now Politburo members would firmly safeguard Xi Jinping's position at the core of the CPC Central Committee and the whole party. Help us understand this concept of putting Xi as the core. What does it mean, and can people still say no to him?
Well, I don't know if they can say no. I'm not in the Politburo, so I don't know. But my understanding is that in this situation, this direction of centralizing power, you need a center. And the center, they decided it must be Xi. So everything must converge on Xi, and then it must also flow back from Xi to the different directions. In theory, there should be, I think, internal, very lively debate, because only through debate you have a real sound and mature choice. If you don't have debate, if you don't see pros and cons in every direction, then it's very difficult to make the right direction. Now, how will this debate be managed? Will it, we shall see it from the outside, we can see it, we cannot see it. Does it exist? I think it does exist, it must exist, otherwise, you cannot take any sound decision. The problem is, how will society perceive it, and how will the world perceive it? Because this is also another very important issue. Decision-making in China is opaque, is not comprehensible from the outside, and that makes many people abroad very preoccupied.
Lawrence, what's your thoughts on this?
I think there is a certain degree of different views out there. They're expressed subtly, and it's a consensus process. So it's the nature of the Chinese society. I see this in Chinese companies. I see it in organizations. I see it in family units, that you don't challenge the authority directly, but you do input. And I have to say, even as an economist, over the past 10 years, there have been policies that I have supported here, and there have been policies that I have commented very strongly against. For instance, the high growth rates that I felt over the past decade were ignoring quality, and they were also hurting the environment. I was part of the ecological civilization drafting process. And this was a situation where ideas were coming in, but if they're presented rationally, intelligently, and they're backed with facts and logic, the government is looking for new inputs. It's looking to seek information that it can make decisions on, and it can really, drive forward a positive overall environment. So it's a different process. It's not about open debate. It's not about trying to offend your opponent or create this type of anger, which is, we see in our American politics today, which is taking all the media attention. And yeah, it's fun, it's interesting, it's exciting, it's like watching sports. But that's not getting results. It's more about looking at the technomics of an economy and the technomics of the geopolitics that's associated in driving that economy, or that economy in turn is driving, and figuring out what are the next best steps. And from my observation, the leadership is open to positive, constructive, and intelligent, rationally argued and researched inputs, even if those inputs are challenging policies that may be going in a certain direction, as long as they are intelligent, rational, and can be taken on board and weighed in a consultative and in a consensus process.
Absolutely, and I think the word constructive is very important here. The goal for debate is not to quarrel, but to come to a better solution that would work for everybody. We have to leave it there. Many thanks to our two guests, political economist Lawrence Brand and Francesco Sisci, senior researcher with the Center for European Studies at Renmin University. And here is my first point, as usual. Now, Xi Jinping quoted a Chinese poem when he met the press with the other 6 members of the top leadership of the CPC. The basic idea is that there is no need to seek praise from others so long as you have integrity in yourselves. Now, the way in which the CPC organizes itself cannot be judged by any existing theories, let alone Western political economic theories, which are already proving inadequate and flawed. What China is looking for is a system that meets the needs and aspirations of the people for a better life, and a system that can rejuvenate the nation in the near future. The world will be watching, as will the Chinese ourselves. You've been watching The Point with me, Liu Xin. We'll take a break and we'll be back right after this. Hundreds of thousands of people attended a rally for Spanish unity in Barcelona at the weekend after Catalonia was stripped of its autonomy for declaring independence. Police said at least 300,000 people had turned up, although organizers put the turnout at more than 1 million. The proclamation of independence followed a referendum organized by the Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont's separatist government earlier this month, in defiance of a ruling by the Constitutional Court of Spain, which had declared the referendum illegal. Now, the Catalan government said that 90% of the people who voted backed independence, although the turnout was some 43%. So do the majority of Catalan people want to break away from Spain? What are the ramifications of this referendum, and where do we go from here? To discuss the topic, I'm pleased to be joined by Jose Luis Garcia, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Spanish Embassy here in Beijing, and Manuel Perez Garcia, Associate Professor from the School of Humanities at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Welcome, gentlemen. Jose, let me come to you first. Now, Catalonia has its own language, which is different from Spanish. The Catalans are also a different ethnic group from Spaniards proper. Economically, they're doing better than the rest of Spain. Many people argue that it has the right to declare independence. What's your view on this?
Well, Catalonia is one of the regions we have in Spain. Spain has 17 regions. We call them autonomous communities. Catalonia is one of them, and the language, the Catalan language, is one of the identities, one of the points that this region has. What you've been seeing on the media over the last couple of months, there's been an intense political debate, there's been an intense process. And this weekend has been extremely interesting, because what we have seen over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, is people experiencing this feeling of relief. We've been following a process. There was a movement of independence set in motion, and somehow people feel now that this has come to an end, and now we have a clear roadmap, a clear view of what's going to happen in the near future. And the near future, what's going to happen is that there's going to be free elections, there's going to be free and fair elections at the end of December, on December the 21st. Mm-hmm. So people have a much more clear view of what the political landscape in Catalonia is, and certainty has been restored.
Okay, we'll come to that in just a moment, but let me ask Manuel his thoughts on the same question I asked Jose just now. Do you think the grievances of the Catalans towards Madrid can be understood? Is, however, independence the solution? Manuel.
Well, I think that these things should be considered quietly and yes, sorry, and the solution, you know, I mean, the independence, of course, we acknowledge that the identity of each region, Catalonia has his language, his history, but we should be acknowledged that it's not such a distinct region like other regions in Spain or another small regions in another European country or any other country in the world. And his history, we should acknowledge in this particular, his history has been always accompanied by the history of Spain. So he was a small count, the Count of Barcelona, that took part of the crown of Aragon. So history has been manipulated by independentists, I must say, and the whole process of this has been pulled in a very bad way by those who are voting and claiming for independence, who are not the majority of Catalonia. That is really important. Because of this multicultural level, many people in Barcelona and the whole Catalonia has different identities. They come from Andalusia, in South Spain, from Extremadura, Basque Country, and they all in the last centuries and all over the year have contributed to the economic growth of Catalonia and what is Catalonian today.
Yeah, well, my question is, maybe, Jose, you can explain to us, how did the situation get so far in the first place before we look into the future? I mean, it has been a dramatic turn of development of events, right? We have seen the referendum, and it was banned or it was declared illegal, and then there was this heated trading of words between the two governments, and then the Catalans declared independence, and Spain immediately stripped them of their autonomy. But how did the situation spiral to where we are today, Jose?
Well, you're right. It's not very easy to understand what's been going on over the last 5 years, I would say. And it's not very easy to describe the causes for that. And many people talk about the rise of nationalism, the rise of populism. And it's been a very intense time. The beginning of this whole process coincided with a very difficult economic moment in Spain. There was a very tough crisis hit in Spain and hit in Europe. And there's many factors who've been coming across to have what we have seen in this last month. It's very difficult to explain why this all has happened, but now we have a much more clear view, and we have the view that normality has been restored. People were these demonstrations we've seen over the weekend, we've seen on Saturday, where people really feeling happy because now they have a much more clear future. People want to work, people want to go to school. In Spain we have a very decentralized system of government. We have different layers of government. We have a central government, we have regions, we have provinces, we have municipalities. The regions in Spain are responsible for education, for health, for many other things, and people want to have normal governments providing services to citizens. And this is the measures that the government in Spain and the Spanish Parliament have approved on the last Friday are just making sure that this is going to happen and the citizens will see their rights protected and that normal citizens can have normal activity, they can go to work, they can have economic certainty and they can see a future in which they can take active part in politics according to the law.
Manuel, the kind of differences in position between Madrid and Barcelona, is there any room for compromise? Is there any possibility that you know, what Catalans are asking for can be taken into consideration by the government in Madrid and realized in some way after the next election, which is set for December 21st? Manuel.
Well, now the thing is being clear, and the good thing, I mean, first of all, we need to remark that the whole process has been declared that the whole process has been declared illegal, not by the government, but the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court of Spain. Because we have a division of powers, and this is really important. The judicial power has declared the whole process illegal. So we cannot discuss something that on real fact has not happened, which is the referendum, because it was declared illegal by the Supreme Court. But what could happen later, the good thing is that the Article 155 has been already issued. And this is a very exceptional case, because in the history of Spain, in the history of democracy in Spain in the last 35 years, this has never happened. So we have this new momentum that many things could be a little bit unclear, but the thing is that the judicial power has put the wheels on motion, and the government will follow the whole constitutional law, the legal tools in his hands to avoid this, because to be honest, it's a madness. We can talk later, but the most important, the major issue is the economic consequences. Many companies just left the region, and of course we can think on another issue about what happened in the European Union. The European Union will not declare, and Juncker has already issued his statement about that he will not recognize any Catalonia.
So Western governments, so European governments are unanimously backing. Unanimously.
Will bring us the new
Manuel, let me interrupt you here.
The 21st of December.
Yeah, Manuel.
Precisely, the independentists.
Yeah, sorry. Let me bring in the next question. What's going to happen? What can we expect of the next election coming on December the 21st? Jose, you say.
No, I want to say that.
Yeah, let me move on to the next question. We're running out of time. Jose, you are saying things are coming back to normal for the Catalans. What does it mean, coming back to normal? Are they going to, so they're going to have an election and they're going to elect a regional government. Will the autonomous power of the regional government be restored? Will Catalonia retain their autonomous state? What will happen?
Yes, actually it cannot be restored because it has not suspended. The government, there's been a couple of measures. They are very limited in the time. It's measures that are going to have a very limited duration, and they are affecting a very limited number of officials. Some of the officials who've been involved in this process have been stripped of their functions, and those functions are overtaken by central government officials. But it has a very limited extent. It's going to be a very limited extent set of measures. And at the end of this year, we will go back to normal working of a normal government of a region in Spain, of an autonomous community.
Yeah. What's going to happen to Carlos Puigdemont? He's being charged, but what's going to happen to him?
Well, this is not for the government to decide. The decision on what's going to happen to each of the individuals who are being prosecuted these days belongs to the courts, to the judges, and it's going to be a due process. They will be heard, and there's going to be, of course, in Spain as in any other country in the world, those breaking the law need to be held accountable, and this is what's going to happen in a due process with the due guarantees and this is going to take some time, so it's not possible to know right now what's going to be the decision of the judges. But this is going to be done according to the rule of law and in full respect of the Spanish Constitution.
Yeah. Finally, Jose, again, why do you think all the EU member countries are in support of Spanish government?
There's a big list of governments supporting Spain, and in that list we also have many other countries in the world. China has been issuing very clear words of support for the Spanish government as well, and many other countries in the world, because this question of populism and nationalism, the whole European project has been a project with which we've been very happy of abolishing barriers, not creating new frontiers, and those people really feel happy with this experience, cannot be happy with the creation of a new border separating territories in one single member state.
Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Jose Luis Garcia, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Spanish Embassy here in Beijing, and to Manuel Perez Garcia, Associate Professor from the School of Humanities at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. My last point here, well, historically, the Western nation state was led and founded by the then emerging bourgeois class, chasing to protect and maximize their economic interests. When the economy of a nation state is thriving, then the political structure would be stable, but when the economic foundation becomes weak and unbalanced, the root of that nation state is likely to be eroded. Analysts have put this as the fundamental reason behind Catalonia's quest for independence. However, if the Catalans would be allowed to break away because their economic advantages, the rationale could be borrowed by many other autonomous regions in other parts of the world, and a domino effect is feared. That explains why many Western countries, and including China, unanimously support the unity of Spain. The Point, and that's it for this edition of The Point. But before we go, here's another taking notice for you. The Point will launch an hour-long special program on world poverty reduction in mid-November, together with our South African partner SABC News, and we need your input. When you hear the word poverty, what comes to your mind? Do you have a question to ask, a comment to make, or a story to tell? Send them to me via thepointwithlx@cgtn.com, or share it on your Facebook, Twitter account using the hashtag #PovertyAndUs. You can always tag me using the handle @thepointwithlx. Your stories, comments and videos may be seen on our special program, which will be aired on CGTN in November. That's all for this edition of The Point. Download the application called CGTN Live to watch our show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.